Hi, I'm Shmuel Heiken. This is my dear friend Grazinka Kieler. We're here today to share a story with you that's truly heart-rendering. We've all been devastated by what has been and continues to go on in Afghanistan. A couple of weeks ago, Grazinka shared the following story with me, and I want her to share it with you today.
I'm following this story since middle of August. It's about Charlotte Maxwell Jones from Kabul Small Animal Rescue, and she wants to evacuate her dogs out of Afghanistan. She made very many preparations to do it, and she received all the veterinary documents needed. People from around the world have gathered much money so that this evacuation could take place. She was at the airport in Kabul for about 7 days, and there were many planes which had to come, but unfortunately they did not receive the permission for landing. And afterwards, at the end, these dogs were forcibly released at the airport, and many of them became again stray dogs.
Right, so even after these dogs, Charlotte and these dogs were not allowed to board planes, they had private funding to bring in these charter planes, and they were not given permission to land.
Correct. They did not receive this permission, even if the money was gathered and the plane was practically ready out of Afghanistan to take them.
This photo was posted to Instagram by Congressman Madison Cawthorn from North Carolina. I want to read to you the response from the Military Working Dog Team Support Association. This photo went viral yesterday, and we want to clear up some misinformation surrounding it. We are 100% certain that there are 0 U.S. military working dogs abandoned in Kabul. 0. The U.S. military did not leave a single military working dog behind. In addition, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby tweeted the following. To correct erroneous reports, the U.S. military did not leave any dogs in cages at Hamid Karzai International Airport, including reported military working dogs. Photos circulating online were animals under the care of the Kabul Small Animal Rescue, not dogs under our care. I want to discuss these two statements because while it is technically true that the U.S. military did not leave dogs behind, dogs under their care, they did leave other dogs behind. And to me, there's really no difference. And it bothered me so much to hear this the first time I heard it when I saw Kirby's response to this picture, because I feel like he was just using a technicality to get out of this. They didn't leave their own dogs behind. But these dogs that they did leave behind were dogs that were brought in to help them, to do the same work as the dogs that were under their care. And they have, in my mind, the same responsibility to take them out as they did the dogs that were under their care. How do you feel about that, Grazinka?
I'm very sorry to hear that, because they were doing the same work as military dogs, and they were saving people's lives, and they were also doing the same very dangerous work, and they were left behind to be killed. Most of them were killed.
Mm-hmm. Now, part of what concerns me is perhaps the U.S. administration and the military is concerned about the optics, meaning how would it look if we brought these dogs out when there are still people there that need to leave? Do you believe that in any way bringing them out would be prioritizing them over people that still need to get out?
Absolutely not. First of all, from private funding, there was collected enough money for the plane to take Charlotte, her staff and animals out of Afghanistan. So nobody would pay for it. There was money voluntarily gathered from around the world. Mm-hmm. So it was enough to give the permission for landing, nothing more. And in this plane there would be the transportation of her staff and of animals.
Eric Pahone, a spokesman for the Department of Defense, claimed that the reason that they couldn't take these dogs out was because they were worried about the potential for canine rabies being brought into the United States. He said that they couldn't verify the vaccinations of these dogs, etc., etc. Is there any truth to this in your mind?
You know, first of all, as you said before, and as you emphasized correctly, most of these dogs were brought to Afghanistan from America. So they had American documents.
Oh, so this is a second group, meaning not the contract working dogs, but...
No, the contract working dogs.
Oh, as
because,
well.
Because, they were brought to Afghanistan, to help people. So the situation was also that they had, American documents, not issued by Afghani veterinarians, but by American veterinarians. So what was the problem? To give exemption so that they could be brought back home.
An exemption from what?
Exemption from CDC rule, which bans dogs to come to America from 113 countries, because CDC does not trust veterinarians from 113 countries that they issue proper documents and that they do proper vaccination.
But this CDC rule was only instituted in June and went into effect in July, correct?
I think that it is not coincidental that to this list of these countries was also added Afghanistan at that time.
And the timing as well, not being coincidental, do you think?
I am afraid it was not.
Right, okay.
So, it was not only about not allowing the stray dogs to come to America, but it was the question of not allowing the dogs, the contract working dogs, to come back home, and also that people who own the dogs, Americans, that they could bring back their dogs whom they treated as their family members.
After the CDC stated this new rule, there was a bipartisan letter sent by 57 congressmen. It was led by Congressmen Ted Deitch in Florida and Brian Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania, and it decried these new requirements, saying how unnecessary they were and the ill effects they would have throughout the country. As far as I know, the CDC never responded to this, and the rule is still in effect and currently keeping Charlotte and her animals trapped in Afghanistan. Grażynka, how do you feel about this new rule?
This rule is very bad. Also because, the law is not retroactive. It is so that people who have taken, for instance, dogs from America to Afghanistan, they should have the right to take them back because these dogs are their family members. And the problem is also that now, for instance, if Americans are going like to Honduras, to Guatemala, just for vacation with their dogs, they cannot come back with their animals even if they have all required documents issued by American veterinary surgeons, because they are not being accepted because of this CDC ban. So it is harming very many people in America. It's not only about no possibility to import like stray dogs to be adopted in America, but also for Americans, it is very bad because they cannot come back with their own dogs. And it should not be so because the law is not retroactive. So if this organization allowed people to go with their dogs abroad, they should have permission to come back with their own animals. And also, if it is so that they still have problems, that they are afraid of disease, it is a very simple thing to build a quarantine place.
Right.
And unfortunately, in America, there are only two such quarantine places. One is in Hawaii, and one is on the overseas territory of America in Guam.
Right. I can't imagine that, just focusing on Charlotte and the dogs under her care, I can't imagine that it would be very difficult to build a quarantine area.
It should be simple.
In America somewhere.
It should be simple. The same rule is, for instance, in United Kingdom. If you bring from some countries the dogs, you have to put them to quarantine. And there is no problem. They are being quarantined. And after then, you can try to adopt them, to find new homes for them.
Right. The timing of the new rule definitely, it really makes you wonder if they were already thinking ahead to Afghanistan and the optics that we discussed as far as taking out dogs when there are still people there. But again, there's absolutely no reason to make this an issue of prioritizing. No one is suggesting that dogs should be prioritized over any human beings. This is simply about, these dogs were brought in to Afghanistan, to a dangerous place for dogs, and they did work that was incredibly helpful to the US military, that saved lives, and now they've just been abandoned.
Yes, they have been abandoned in one of the poorest countries in the world.
Right.
And the other thing is that, of course, the situation was dangerous. But for instance, the embassy of India, they evacuated their dogs.
Really?
In the same situation. So if they could, other countries could have done the same thing.
It's simply a matter of caring enough.
Yes, and the problem is also this huge billion worth security companies which don't care for the animals. You know, they did not care for the animals. They were earning much money on work of these
This is
dogs.
Garter World and these other...
Yes, other contract working contract companies, and they did not care for the welfare of these animals. They were earning much money on them, but they did not do anything to save them and to bring them back home, either to Canada, to America, and to other countries.
Right, right. So, I mean, to me, you know, the American military, the American government, you know, they're holding all the cards. Afghanistan, you know, I read a report today that very soon 95% of the citizens of Afghanistan, you know, will not have enough food to eat, basically. Things are getting really bad. There have been a couple of bombings over the last week, you know, from ISIS. The Taliban obviously needs a lot of help from America and from everyone as far as aid, which they're going to get, whether it's given to them or, you know, to the people, although, you know, we can never be too sure of where that ends up, of course. But America holds a lot of leverage here because the Taliban know that if they don't make enough people happy, they could even have people defect to ISIS, you know, some people that actually find them, you know, to not be extreme enough. So they need as much money and aid as they could get, which means that, again, the leverage is there, and it's simply a matter of the will of the Biden administration and, you know, enough people speaking out, bringing it up as an issue, bringing it to other people's attention. The main thing that people could do is call their congressman, put pressure on them, tell them, you know, Charlotte is a hero. You know, some might say she's crazy for, you know, risking her life for these animals. But, you know, I think for anyone who's had a dog, it's very easy to understand, you know, the relationship, the connection, and the responsibility that she feels. And she feels this towards, how many dogs are there that are under her care now?
You know, it's hard to say because some of them could not be recollected back because they were killed or they were handicapped or they became stray dogs again. So it is difficult to say because she's still trying to find them, and she's also under process of obtaining all the permissions.
Wow.
So it's, you know, everything under process, and also she's collecting, for instance, a turtle left by the Canadian embassy. So it is still under process of collecting animals to be evacuated.
Okay. We urge everyone watching this to share the story with their friends, raise awareness, call your local congressman, put pressure on them to make this a bigger issue. This is not about politics, as most things unfortunately are in America. This is simply about doing the right thing.